It's been a long time, but welcome back to the Good Enough Garage. On today's episode, we're going to be working on my buddy Rick's 1968 Corvette Roadster. This thing's kind of a work in progress kind of thing. He bought it, it had been sitting for a long time, so he's slowly fixing it up. I've already done a few things to it, like fix some wipers and do some electric headlight doors, but you guys have already seen stuff like that on the channel. So on this episode, we're going to be working on installing a set of Dakota digital gauges in this thing. We're going to start working on this thing, and then I started getting into it, started getting in the zone, and then realized I'm not recording, so oops. So I'll kind of pull you in real quick, show you what I've done so far, like just started kind of tearing some stuff apart. So I'll kind of show you what we're doing, and then we'll just kind of pick up from there. I'm WhiteWall Steve. This is my Good Enough Garage. So like I said, I kind of started on this thing, kind of got a little jump the gun-ish, but that's okay. You know, if you guys got a Corvette and you're watching this video, you'll kind of understand what's going on. And if you don't have a Corvette and you're watching this video, then you might understand too. You might learn something too, but probably not. Took the shifter plate off. It's over here. Nothing really was connected on it. There's supposed to be fiber optic cables right there for the lights, and then you got the cigarette lighter. None of that was hooked up. Might try to hook that cigarette lighter back up for him, but I don't know. We got this pad off. It was just the 3 screws and the 2 screws on the side, and then 2 screws over here on the gauge panel. So we got that off. We took all the screws out of the gauge panel, so that gauge panel is pretty much ready to come off. We're going to unplug the wiper switch, so we'll just unplug that, get that all out of the way. There's actually a duct right here, and we're gonna have to kind of get in there. There looks like there's some screws back there. So 68 is kind of a weird year for C3 Corvettes. It's a one of only year where there's a lot of weird kind of things. Like this duct thing doesn't really exist on the later models. This one is the only C3 with a key on the dash too. When we go to take that panel off, I'll kind of bring you in and show you what's going on. I want to get like this panel off here. I want to get all of this out. We're going to take the radio out and everything as one unit, and then we're going to be replacing these gauges with the Dakota Digital RTX, which before I go any further, why don't we go get those gauges, rip them out of the box, and see what we got going on, so I can kind of show you what we're doing. I've installed Dakota digital gauges in quite a few cars. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but let's kind of open up that box and show you what we got going, and then kind of go from there. So let's kind of take a pause here. Let's head over to the bench. Okay, so this is the box, this is the gauges, but before I open this, I also want to give a big shout out to Stellar Rod and Customs in Plymouth, Michigan. Mike over there was able to get us a little bit of a discount on these gauges. I got to give him a shout out because he's been really good to us over the years. So big thanks to Mike, Stellar Rod and Customs. I put his number right somewhere, maybe there, maybe there. But Mike and his team over there, they're really good guys. Give them a call. Anyway, let's get this thing opened up. And these are the RTX, so this is their top of the line gauge for the C3 Corvette. As you can see, on here I haven't taken the plastic off. I'm not going to do that yet, but it kind of matches that stock look, but it also has an LED screen. You could change this to whatever color you want when it illuminates. It's a really, really nice setup. That's the speedometer. No, that's the tach. I'm sorry. We got the speedometer. Like I said, it gives you that factory look while keeping a modern feel, and it's got that LCD screen that can read out your speed, anything to do with the car, any type of information for the gauges can be illuminated in that screen too. And then there's your 5-pack with all your gauges plus the top clock. So that's really cool. And like I said, all of this will illuminate, and it comes in this little panel. You can also control it from your phone too, if I remember correctly. that out of the way. And then we got all your cables, sensors, and everything's in here. Got a water temp sensor, speedo, oil pressure sensor, and then you got this brain here. You mount this somewhere under the dash. All your wiring goes to this, and then you only have to worry about 2 wires going to this gauge, 1 wire going to this gauge, and 2 wires going to this gauge, and that's all you really got to worry about, little harnesses. So it also makes it, if you ever have to take it back apart, it makes it real easy. And then we got over here more all your cables, sensors, all that stuff. So this is everything for the gauge setup to work, and we're going to get this installed. Why don't we get the rest of the dash tore apart? It's going to kind of speed it up a little bit, get that all ripped out, and then if I run into any issues, I'll bring you guys in, or if I run into anything that I think. Let's do this. Alright, I want to show you one little thing here before we kind of move any further. So I kind of got the center stack pulled out. We got all this wiring off the back of the gauge cluster. All of this can be unplugged, unhooked, whatever. We're going to be getting rid of all of that wiring, and all of that wiring is going to go to that brain box now, and we're going to be getting rid of all the stock wiring for these gauges. So when I get to wiring this thing, I'll kind of show you what we'll do on that, but you're not really too worried about trying to figure out, remember what goes where or any of that stuff, because we're going to be getting a schematic out, and we're going to be figuring out what everything is, and then we're going to completely rewire that stuff, because we're not using the stock sending units, the stock sensors, any of that stuff. So I just want to kind of let you guys know that we're not really too worried about this stuff. Anyway, back to getting this ripped apart. This thing had like light bulbs galore in it, so different little warning lights, not to mention turn signals, illumination, things like that. So I'll show you where I'm probably going to mount the box. We're going to work on that next. Okay, so here's the box. This is your brain. That's pretty much what controls your gauges. All your wiring goes to this. So what I'm thinking is we're going to mount that bad boy right there. We're going to build a bracket coming off of here, a bracket coming off of here, and we're just going to put it right there. And I think that'll be really good. Either that or the bracket will come off of from up here. We also want to make sure once we get this mounted that it's not going to interfere with the piece here, which I don't think it will, but we will double check. So come back once I get this all mounted up and show you guys what I did. So now I have that box all mounted, so you can kind of see it's on the passenger side. It'll be right behind this panel right here. So that way, if you ever have to get to it, all you got to do is pop that panel off. Boom, right there. I'm going to take these back off. I'm going to get them painted so that they're nice and black and won't rust or anything. In here, I'm going to kind of give you guys a quick rundown of the wiring that I'm working on right here. So I got all this harness right here. I haven't wrapped it yet, but this right here is pretty much all the gauge wiring outside of the sensor wiring. So this is everything except the sensors. So you got 3 sensors that are going to be going in this car. You got a water temp, an oil pressure, and a speed sensor. We'll take care of those in a bit, but right now I'm going to show you guys all the other gauge stuff like turn signals, brake light switch, tack wiring, bright high beam indicator, pretty much everything you're going to need for this brain box outside of the sensors. Pretty much cut everything I didn't need out of this harness. All the stock plugs, all the stock light bulbs, all that stuff has been cut out of this harness. You can see right here, I kind of cut everything out. You don't necessarily have to do that, but it does clean up under here, especially once I get everything wrapped in cloth tape and all that. We're on the driver's side now. Okay, got the column here. So you got a green wire that had a light bulb on it. This was going into the main 2 gauges. So everything we're working on right now is going on the main 2 gauges. So you had a green wire coming off. I went to a green wire. That's your high beam indicator. That'll go to the high beam indicator section on that brain. Then you got a light blue wire. That is your left turn signal. Then you had a ton of gray wires. There's gray wires all over, you know, there's like 4 gray wires with bulbs on each gauge, and then there's a bunch also on the center pack gauge. Those are all illumination. You only need 1 of those wires. All the rest can get cut, tied up, or whatever. Those all went to that gray wire. I went to a white wire because I didn't have any gray, but that's illumination. So that goes to the dim section on that controller box. There's also a couple of grounds that come off of the, I'm not sure if they're needed or not, but I ran them all to this ground, plus there was a ground going to the lights. So I ran them all to this ground. This is just going to go right here on the bird cage, or the metal. Then we got a white wire here coming from the engine bay. This is your tack wire. So this goes to the ground side of the coil, which if we go out here, okay, it's going right here to the ground side of the coil. So, and then it goes in right there, and that's to control your tack. That'll go to the tack section. Then we go over here. A couple of things I did. So for the brake switch, the brake light switch, you know, that lights up red brake when your e-brake is on or when you're low on brake fluid, what I ended up doing was I went to, I used the pink side of the wire for my switched hot for the brain box, for the controller box, and then there's a tan wire. That tan wire is the ground for that brake switch. When you pull the e-brake, that goes to the brake spot on the controller box. And then you have a dark blue wire here. This dark blue wire is what controls the right turn signal, so that goes to the right. Then down here there was a switch or a full-time hot for the clock. I'm using that for the full-time hot for my controller box. So, and that was an orange wire coming off the harness. And then the rest of the stuff we just cut. We're gonna tie all that up real nice, make it look really, really pretty. That pretty much is everything. So when I come back, all that'll be wrapped up really nice, and then we'll start on the engine bay. I already have the oil pressure sender installed because it was real easy to get to. It's right there on the back of the block, and that's what this wire is here. There's 3 wires coming off, well, 4 wires coming off of that. So we'll be routing that, and then there's also the water temp sensor, which is right there, which is going to make a little bit of a mess when we pull it out. We're going to try to get it out and get the new one in right away. And then the speed sensor is under the car. We'll have to take care of that. I might go through the center console. I might make a hole in the center console for that wiring to go through, because I think it'll be a little easier than going into the engine bay and then back down, and we can just go right through there. So anyway, that's the wiring portion for the main for all the wiring that you have to add, and then we'll be doing the sensors next. Water temp sensors in, oil pressure sensors in, all the wiring's going to the controller box. So all we really have left to do before we can start putting this thing together, we got 2 things left to do. Number 1, right here, this is a speed sensor for the speedometer. Now, on these old Corvettes and a lot of these older cars that you're doing these Dakota digital dashes on, they were originally cable-driven speedometers. So what this is this goes into your cable-driven speedometer spot on the transmission, and this will get you your speed, and then you got a plug that goes into here, pigtail, that'll go back to that controller box. So what we're going to do next is get this installed into the trans. I'll show you where it goes. Now this is a manual transmission car, so it's a 4-speed, so this may vary and be a little bit different from an automatic transmission, but it's the same concept. There's a cable going into the trans, you unscrew the cable, you put this in its place, and then you plug it in and it goes in. So let's go underneath the car. I got the car jacked up and check out what's going on. So not sure if you could see it or not, but I'm under the car. This is on the passenger side. It's right there. That is the, I'll let you circle it in the video. There is the cable going to the transmission. So this one's a little bit buried. It's kind of on top of the cross member area. But we're going to get in there, unscrew that, take the cable out. Now this cable kind of runs up underneath the car to the front and goes through the firewall. We're actually going to pop a little hole in the trans tunnel. We're going to go ahead and get that done right now. So when I come back, I should have that installed, and I'll show you what it looks like. So the microphone pretty much completely malfunctioned on my camera, so I'm going to do a little voiceover now. Here you can see that I got the sensor all pretty much installed here. It's installed in the side of the trans, and the wiring is actually running up through the trans tunnel. We'll go back up top, and here the wiring's running up through the trans tunnel and then goes to the brain controller box. So it's all wired up and everything looks good. So now we got this thing all put back together. Everything looks really good. And these gauges are all set. I actually got them lit up right now. And I'm going to kind of show you guys with the Bluetooth on the phone, you can actually change the colors. So if we go through them a little bit, you can kind of see how they'll all change. So see, they go to green here and then blue. I mean, they look really cool, and they're all kind of changing colors and everything. So just kind of wanted to show you guys that all together, that you can control and set up everything through your phone through Bluetooth if you don't feel like going through it, manually with the switch on the rocker. So these things are installed and all set up. So, all right. And that's going to do it for the Dakota Digital gauge install in Rick's 1968 Corvette Roadster. It went really smooth, got it done fairly quickly, and everything works. We still got to set that fuel gauge though, and we still got to set that speedometer, but we'll be able to do that once we get the car rolling. That's going to do it for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys learned how to install those gauges, and it pretty much works the same in just about every application that Dakota Digital does, and I've done it in a lot of different cars, and it's pretty much the same setup, just different dashes. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time on the WhiteWall Steve Goodenough Garage. I gotta clean this place up. This place is a disaster. Alright, anyway, see you guys.